Yeah, doing great. It's such a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. It's nice to get some form of acknowledgement.
Well, I guess that's what we're going to be talking about today, aren't we? This is my first official interview. It's an honor to have, the potential future king and whatever else I'm about to find out about your story, the rest of you and your story, which is highly interesting. I'm so intrigued and fascinated by it. I'm definitely.
Well, you should be. Your name's Stan Barabbas. This is where we set things straight.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting in that sense as well, which many are about to find out, that we have the two opposing forces, I guess. Or what is?
I think you got the lucky strike last time.
Yeah, or as I read, I don't know. I don't know too much about the history. Maybe you can kind of fill us in as we progress later into the conversation about the story of Barabbas and the Christ Jesus, and how what you know about it. What I read a couple things a few weeks ago, more into it, was interesting. And some say that the two were the one. That was one story. So I don't know. There's a lot out there, and I don't know what that truth is to be revealed.
They just added confusion for no reason other than confusion. They just added confusion. Just fantastic amounts of confusion. In every century or so, they'd add another level of confusion. And they invented a lot of the culture. A lot of it didn't exist. So you got the Bible, and then you've got all these other books that go with it. Sing songs and methods of ritual. It just didn't exist. It was just all made up.
Let's do this. We're going to get into all that, and so we can clear a lot of this confusion up. And I think that's, what our purpose here is to do, is clear up a lot of this confusion. But let's start with an introduction to, I know you could get in a long-winded conversation about that, but how about let's get into, let me first introduce you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joseph Gregory Hallett. I'm going to let him finish that story, but I just want to kind of give my quick little introduction. What I found is he has an interesting story that you might want to listen to, and he has a lot of information in regards to a lot of history of royalty and history of himself and his connections and genealogy. And I just want to, bring Joseph Gregory Hallett here to bring his story, to share it with you. And I ask that you please proceed with an open heart and an open mind, without judgment and expectation. Try to see outside of the books that you've written as scriptures, and just approach this with an open mind so you can see possibly a bigger picture. So what I'll do is I'll turn this over to Joseph Gregory Hallett. He can kind of give us a story of the man, maybe not in detail, but a story of, how you kind of, the history of Gregory Hallett.
Yeah, well, when you first contacted me, you wanted to know, you said that some people on your site were commenting that I was the AntiChrist.
Yep.
And there's two spellings of AntiChrist. One is ANTI-Christ, and the other is ANTE-Christ. And one of the things that the Christians and people studying the Bible, etc., are not doing is discovering the legal definitions of words. And ANTI-Christ means the opposite of Christ, and ANTE-Christ means in place of Christ. Right, so what I sent you was a short video I did where the people were clapping in front of the NHS, right, which doesn't stand for National Health Service. It stands for New Hallett Sovereign. And it was preceded by Prince William's abdication, showing he had no hair. He put his head down in front of the camera, showed he had no hair, so he wasn't the hair. And then he said he had no socks, no shoes, and no trousers, meaning he was the emperor with no clothes.
On my way, let me just see if I can find my socks, and my shoes, and my trousers.
Right, and then the camera pans out at 8 p.m. on Thursday, the 23rd of April, 2020. It shows emerge, depart. Emergency, but it just showed emerge, and department, it just showed depart. And then it pans to a white star with a point upwards, which is the symbol of ISIS. And then there's another person standing, and the word outstanding reads T, stand in. emerge, depart, right? Emergency, but it just showed emerge, and department, it just showed depart. And then it pans to a white star with a point upwards, which is the symbol of ISIS. And then there's another person standing, and the word outstanding reads T, stand in. Right? So the star, Christ, stand in, which is the definition of AnteChrist, AntiChrist, stand in. Right? So they've been putting out a lot of public videos, including the Easter Friday ceremony, where the Pope named me. He named Joseph Gregory and his documents completing the Christ. And before that, they closed the world for Lent. Right?
Uh-huh.
The whole world was closed for Lent. It's never happened before. And then Trump alluded to me. He said, Greg, the documents, brilliant. And then someone stands up, someone's head comes up in front of the camera.
That's a great book. I'll tell you, he did something else great. He did a that was so incisive. Did you see that? Something else great. He did a that was so incisive. Did you see that? Something else great. He did a that was so incisive. Did you see that?
Which is heads up. When the head comes up in front of the camera, that's heads up. And then Trump goes, did you see that? That was so incisive. So he was aware of the third party thing that was going on. You know, so they've been doing these signs. What the Bible says is, we'll give you signs, and there'll be so many signs, but try and get the signs. What, you want more signs? Because some people can't see them. And it's actually a sign of sociopathy and schizotypal that people can't see the signs in front of them. Right? And it's actually a sign of mental health to actually see the signs and register it. So what I've been doing is recording signs, and I've got just lots of them, videos of them, books.
I've seen that. And is this kind of like a, and when I say occult, that just means hidden. Is this something that is in the XYY chromosome that you were born with?
Well, the XYY chromosome is in 1 in 1,000 males, so it's not that special.
Okay.
It's just 1 in 1,000. I just discovered it recently, and it described the effects is that you're a slow learner when you're younger, and then you have huge amounts of acne, and then you become more intelligent later on in life. You know, I didn't read until I was 8, and I had so much acne. I basically looked like craters of the moon. So what they've done is they've been naming me as the Christ, right? And my co-author was the Sangreal, who is the primogeniture male lineage, blood lineage of the Jesus and Mary lineage, which is basically it's mainly the Mecklenburg-Strelitz line, right? That's acknowledged as having the most Jesus, Mary lineage bloodline. And that was blind Prince George of Cumberland, who married Queen Victoria when they were both 14. And he became the King of Hanover. And we've got the signet ring for the King of Hanover, and that signet ring is actually on the cover of all my books, the Hidden King of England books. So we've got that lineage. And then I gave the Sangreal, who was Queen Victoria's great-great-great-great-grandson, I gave him the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and he gave me King of England and told me to go to England, and if I was the King of England, I wouldn't have to do anything. So I've been in England for 5 years, and the British royal family's just falling apart.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Can you explain Sangreal for those who aren't familiar?
Sangreal means blood royal.
Okay.
Just means blood royal. So I went to the Eastern Bloc and Moscow, and the Berlin Wall fell down. I went to the Netherlands and Queen Beatrix abdicated. I went to Portugal near Spain, in the Algarve, and King Juan Carlos of Spain abdicated. And now I'm in England, and the Queen's just done a soft abdication. And all the tarot card readers independently, there's 3 tarot card readers independently, 2 in America and 1 in Ireland. And they're all reading that the Queen's abdicated, never to return, and that it's done by something judicial, right,
Mhm.
as the cause of it. And you, I believe, mentioned my name to Innate Light.
Oh, well,
Is that
no,
right?
actually, I didn't mention your name. You posted that on your BitChute, and I've been watching your videos, trying to see
Yeah,
all of them, every one I can, and then you posted the Innate Light one. So I watched
yeah.
it, and I saw her reading, and then I posted on that. But I did not introduce you to her. It was, she saw Deception Bites, which is the same video I saw how I discovered you. And when I saw
Right.
Deception Bites, she's the one that was calling you the Antichrist and all this. And I said, well, this is interesting, because I saw the documents and saw how, I went and said, well, let me look into this. This is interesting. Then I got to see the bigger picture of your story, your declarations, and your videos, and I was highly intrigued. So I dug further, and I thought I'd do a counter video to look deeper into that. And so that's how I found out about you, was through Deception Bites, and that led us to here where we are now. And that
Right.
video led me to Sally. Sally saw my video on you, and then she connected us, and here we are a day later here on Zoom together.
Oh, right. Yeah, good. Yeah, I felt like doing an interview last night, so sometimes you feel like doing one. So we're doing it today anyway, so it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I had to run out. I apologize for that. I had some things I had
That's
to
fine.
immediately. Well, let me ask you this. Let's, as far as your history from a child growing up, like, who was Greg Hallett? How did this come about without the detail? Like, you grew up, where you grew up, and because I know you have connections to Christ lineage, is that correct? The blood, the birthplace.
I didn't really know anything, but when I was 5, Queen Elizabeth II sent her sergeant surgeon, which is a doctor, out to New Zealand to become the Governor General, and he introduced me to her brother, Queen Elizabeth II's brother, right?
Uh-huh.
Who was actually a superior to Elizabeth. And they weren't actually blood related, because Elizabeth is actually not the daughter of King George VI and is not the daughter of Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. But this chap out of New Zealand was actually the biological son of King George VI. So the Governor General suggested I go and see him. So my father took me down to see him. And at the same time, they changed the coins of New Zealand from British pounds and pence to New Zealand dollars and cents, but retained the coin in New Zealand called the crown, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is like a big, solid, heavy coin. That was interesting, and I checked that out with. I later met the Queen Mother's bodyguard, and in the 2000s, and he confirmed it. And I met someone working for Internal Affairs and the Security Intelligence Service, and they confirmed it. The one working for Internal Affairs actually told a similar story, but independent, and we were both describing the decor, and then we both went to the Queen Mother's bodyguard, told our stories independently, and then he confirmed it, because he was actually the one that went and picked up King George VI's son and took him on little diplomatic missions, right? So that was kind of interesting. And then they awarded me the Royal Styles and Titles of New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Grenada.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 13.
13. Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. So first meeting was 5 3/4. Next one was I was 13, 12, 13, 14. And then when I was 18, I was naturally, you're going to have to believe this because I don't want to go into the detail. I've done videos on it though. I was naturally made the highest initiate of the Egyptian mysteries.
Interesting.
Right. So, and that's the same training that Jesus had, because he was away in Egypt from a very young age to at least the age of 18.
Okay.
Right? And the way you actually interpret the Bible is actually through Christianity's oldest science called typology theology. And not many Christians know about it, but it is that what is written in the Bible will happen in some future time in another place. Right? So what's happened in the Bible, especially Revelations, is it's all basically happened to me. And the description of Jesus being born in Bethlehem and, living near the mount, the Temple Mount, all relates to me. In Bethlehem and a manger, etc. When you actually look at what the word manger means, and I used to live between Bethlehem and the mount, but not in Israel, right?
Okay.
And I was born in cottage, which is a small building, which is a crib, which is a manger. And then we lived at a crib, which is a very small batch, about, 30 square meters. It's tiny. And then we lived just below and behind a bakery, which is a house of bread, which is the definition of Bethlehem, right? And then we moved between a town called Bethlehem and the Mount, which is this, and Tauranga, this mountain just emerges 800 meters out of the sea, and there's a sand spit going into it that people have built on. So I used to live between those two. So all of this just adds up to typology theology. And then in the last couple of years, I looked at the definitions of words like Mashiach, Messiah, and Christ, what they actually mean,
right? This was just over the last couple of years. So when did you start really putting together this connection to, I guess we should say, Christ's lineage? And then I guess we'll have to figure out where it's Son of Man or Son of God, and how what all that means and how that works into this.
Yeah, well, Son of Man is actually above Son of God. Son of God just means that you are descended from Abraham. That's all that means.
Okay.
Right, so Joseph of Arimathea was the son of God, or a son of God, because he was descended from Abraham, and he was Jesus' father or stepfather,
okay.
And perhaps follower as well. They try to add as much confusion as possible, and they end up creating cognitive dissonance, and then saying, well, the solution to cognitive dissonance is faith. But it doesn't do people any good to have heads that are a mess.
Yeah, so I guess the Book of Prediction, if I understand it correctly, was pre-Bible? The Book of Prediction?
Yeah.
So that's actually the first book that many are unaware of? Would that be correct?
Very, very, very few people are aware of it. We've got another book that is stored and only comes out with an elite army on special occasions, and that one, that's called the Tradition Received, and it's a book of prophecy and sayings, and at the end of the life the popes are allowed to write 4 lines in it as the culmination of everything that is their shtick, if you know what I mean, for their era. So the Book of Predictions is above that, and the Book of Predictions was actually got, retrieved, found, discovered, and absconded with by Walter Raleigh during the Kitters and Faro raids, where they were stealing libraries because the Oxford Library was empty. The Oxford Library only had 3 books plus chained books, which were chained to a stand, and all the other books in the Oxford Library had been stolen. So Elizabeth I sent out sailors, pirates, buccaneers, privateers, and the Navy to attack Spain and Portugal and only steal their books. That was all. Just steal their books and then put those books in the Oxford Library, and that eventually became the Bodleian Library.
Okay.
Right.
So you've got the Book of Predictions, which is the first book, the Book of Prophecies, which is the second book. Is that
well, I wouldn't call the other one the Book of Prophecies. I'd say the other one is at least a 2,000-year-old record of the tradition received.
Of who?
Of the tradition received.
Oh, tradition received. Okay.
Yeah. So the tradition received is all of the high initiates having. I'm just imagining this, but it's all of the high initiates having the prophecies in a cognizant, memorable, but difficult to state language, are waiting for the eventuality so they know who is who.
So what I'm gathering from this, Greg, is that royalty has pretty much controlled religion throughout our history.
No, it's actually the opposite. It's actually, when you actually get around to it, all royalty actually stems from religion. And the most valuable thing in royalty are the remains of Jesus. Right? And we were presented the remains of Jesus in 1850. Right? And they were wrapped in a red and green ribbon, which marks the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church gave us Jesus' remains, or rather, it was more likely that we had Jesus' remains and they were wrapped in a ribbon certified by the Catholic Church, by the red and green ribbons, and presented to us in 1850. And that was given to Queen Victoria's firstborn and only legitimate son, Prince Marcos Manuel, who was then made King John II of England in 1869.
And that would be your
Christ lineage predecessor. Right, and at the same time, he was presented with the sword of the Duke of Saxon-Coburg and Gotha, which is the true German lineage, whereas what we've got in the UK is Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which is an anglicised version of Saxon-Coburg and Gotha, unrelated. This one, the English one, is totally illegitimate. It's called the Albertine branch, whereas the true one is Ernestine. So the Ernestine branch, which is us, we have the sword, so we can actually elevate all the kings of Europe and the UK. These guys, the Albertine, have no legitimacy, don't have the sword, can't do any elevations, can't make a king. And that's what we've had. That's what we've had in the UK for 200 years, is can't make a king.
Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip and all them.
And George VI and George V and Edward VII, all bogus. They're all frauds, man. They're all frauds, and they know it. So they've been abdicating to me. The Queen's just done a soft abdication. She's left. She abdicated on the 10th of May, Sunday. Today's Friday. She abdicated 5 days ago.
Oh, really?
And that's due to my paperwork.
The declarations that you submitted.
Absolutely, yeah. Because they know it's true. And there's rules of the game. So when you get into the tradition received, rules of the game are that because I'm registered in the Holy See as a member of the Star family, which is a member of the Jesus Mary lineage, they are not allowed to say anything against me.
And that's why in the Vatican it was recognized and said on Easter. I watched that.
We now remain in. Now it was preparation day, and they came to Jesus and saw that he was ready. An eyewitness has testified, and his testimony is true. He knows that he is speaking the truth, so that you also may come to believe. For this happened so that the scripture be fulfilled. Not a bone of it will be broken. And again another passage says, they shall look upon him after this. Joseph of Arimathea secretly the body of Jesus. So he came and took his body. St. Gregory the Great said that Scripture grows with its readers. It reveals meanings always new. The current situation, the cross of Christ has changed. It is no longer punishment. It was redeemed at its root when the Son of God took it upon himself. Coronavirus has abruptly roused us to omnipotence. A Jewish rabbi has written in these days that we have the opportunity to celebrate a very special Paschal Exodus this year. That from the exile in his prime. How true that is. Never so much as now have we experienced deep is the mystery. In an instant, it has broken down all the barriers. As the Holy Father has exhorted us, we should not waste this opportunity. So must the Son of Man be lifted up. Let us gaze upon the one who was lifted up for us on the cross.
Yeah. It's said on Easter.
In the Easter address by the Queen, it was also mentioned, not directly. It's almost kind of, well, the Vatican was more direct, but I think her Easter address was a little indirect. Was it not?
Well, Elizabeth's always ambiguous because the entire UK government knows that she is illegitimate, knows that she is not the Queen, so they do everything the opposite of what she says. That's why Elizabeth's speeches are always completely ambiguous.
Makes sense, yeah.
It's a funny game. It's a really funny game, right? And it is, it's a game, but it's real. But the thing about this 3D, 5D chess game is it just affects the whole planet and time and how we live and what we go through. And basically, we are just living through the predictions in Revelation at the moment. Yeah.
So,
which names me, which names and describes me.
And interestingly enough, were you kind of divinely guided to the movies and all these revelations that you share? The reversing of the language, where you reverse their speech. When you played it backwards, it said your name.
That's episode 28, the big night in Prince William's fail.
Okay.
That's why when Prince William says "my trousers" backwards, it's Greg Hallett.
And my trousers. And my trousers. And my trousers. And my trousers. And my trousers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Actually, to tell you the truth, I just I have lazy days, and I just I'm not doing anything, and then I just muck around, and then it just pops out. It just hits me in the face.
I see.
Okay. And it's like
you just were compelled to play it backwards, and then it worked out that way. I mean,
just mucking around. You're laying out a video, and then you just I think I'll just pop that over here, reverse it, and see what it sounds like.
Interesting.
And sometimes I can hear it, sometimes I can't. And then you go out and you have a break. We have listened to it the next day, and then it does sound like that, or it doesn't sound like that. Or you can only do it for so long, and then you get saturated with it. But yeah, it's quite interesting because what they're saying is that reverse speech is the subconscious message. That's kind of their angle on it, So I don't mind. I just use it. It's fun, It's a bit of fun.
Yes, it is, exactly. It's very intriguing. So let's get back to the